Captain June Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless. The large window in front of him showed the blackness of space with tiny dots of stars. His ship was the pride of Earth's space fleet. It was big, strong, and full of weapons. But June did not feel proud right now. He felt worried. "Captain, there is something on our radar," said Officer Subin Han. Her eyes did not leave the screen in front of her. "It's big and moving fast." June walked to her station. "How big? How fast?" "Very big, sir. About 3 times the size of our ship. And it's coming from a part of space we have never explored before." June rubbed his chin. In his 15 years as a captain, he had met aliens 6 times. All those meetings had been peaceful. But something felt different this time. "Is it sending any messages?" he asked. Communications Officer Hyun Park shook his head. "No, sir, nothing yet." The bridge was quiet. Only the soft beeps of computers could be heard. 20 crew members worked at their stations, but no one spoke. They all felt the same thing. Something was not right. "Put it on the main screen," ordered June. The big screen at the front of the bridge lit up. At first they saw nothing but stars. Then a dark shape appeared. It looked like a long black diamond. Purple lights moved across its surface like glowing rivers. "What is that?" whispered Tae Min, a young officer on his first space mission. "No," one answered. No one knew. Suddenly, Hyun's console began to flash red. "Captain, they're scanning us." June's face became serious. Being scanned was normal in space. Ships scanned each other to make sure they were not a threat. But this scan was different. "The scan is going through all our shields," said Hyun. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. "They can see everything, our weapons, our engines, even our crew." "Can we block it?" asked June. "No, sir. Their technology it's beyond anything we have." June walked back to his captain's chair and sat down. He did not show fear, but inside his heart was beating fast. "All crew, battle stations," he said calmly. Red lights began to flash throughout the ship. The sound of running feet could be heard as crew members rushed to their posts. "Sir," said Subin, "should we prepare our weapons?" June thought for a moment. Starting a fight with an unknown alien ship could lead to war. But being defenseless was not an option either. "Prepare weapons, but do not aim them. I don't want to seem aggressive." Inside the alien ship, things were very different. The Varine did not look like humans. They had 6 eyes arranged in a circle on their face. Their skin was covered in scales that changed color with their mood. Right now, most of them were a pale blue, the color of confusion. Science Director Ziv stood before a large 3D image of the human ship. Data streamed around it, showing everything their scan had found. "What is this?" he asked, his voice a series of clicks and whistles that the ship's computer translated. "This can't be right." Fleet Commander Vex floated into the room. The Varine didn't walk. They glided on anti-gravity discs attached to their lower bodies. "What have you found, Ziv?" asked Vex. His scales were deep purple, the color of authority. "The ship is primitive," said Ziv. "Their weapons are basic, their shields are weak, but the beings inside, they're unlike anything we've seen before." Ziv touched the 3D image, and it changed to show the inside of the human ship. Hundreds of small dots moved around, each one a human crew member. "Look at their living conditions," said Ziv. "The temperature changes from room to room. Some areas are cold, others hot. They breathe oxygen, a highly reactive and dangerous gas. They eat solid food that they have to break down inside their bodies." Vex's scales rippled with disgust. The Varine absorbed nutrients through their skin from a special mist. The idea of putting things inside their bodies was revolting. "And their biology," continued Ziv. "They have one brain, but it's divided into parts that sometimes fight each other. They sleep. They actually become unconscious for hours every day. And their emotions, they're so strong they can override rational thought." Vex moved closer to the image. "Are they a threat?" Ziv hesitated. "I don't know. Their technology is no match for ours, but there's something else." He touched the image again and it zoomed in on the ship's recreation area. Humans were lifting heavy objects up and down, running on machines that went nowhere, and hitting each other while wearing protective gear. They deliberately put themselves in pain, said Ziv. They call it exercise and training. They make their bodies suffer to become stronger. Vex's scales turned a pale yellow, the color of concern. Show me their weapons, he said. The image changed again. Now they could see the weapon systems of the Dauntless. Missiles, lasers, and something called kinetic impact projectiles. Their main weapon fires solid metal at high speeds, explained Ziv. It's primitive but effective. The metal would tear through our outer hull like it was paper. Vex studied the image. What about their power source? Ziv touched the screen one more time. The image zoomed in on the ship's engine room. That's what worries me most, he said. Their power core is unstable by our standards. It produces enormous energy, but if damaged, it would explode, finished Vex. Yes, with enough force to destroy their ship and severely damage ours. And look at this. Ziv highlighted a small device attached to the power core. It's designed to detonate if the ship is in danger of being captured. Vex's scales turned deep red, the color of alarm. They would destroy themselves to harm us? He asked. It appears so, said Ziv. I've studied their computer records. Humans have a concept called going down fighting. They prefer death to surrender. Back on the Dauntless, Captain June was making plans of his own. Send a message to Earth Command, he told Hyun. Tell them we have made contact with an unknown species. Send all the data we have. And tell them to send backup. Yes, sir, said Hyun. His fingers moved quickly over his console, sending the message faster than light to Earth, 15 light-years away. Do you think they're hostile? Asked Subin quietly. June looked at the alien ship on the screen. It wasn't moving. It was just watching. I don't know, he said. But I've learned one thing in all my years in space. It's better to have friends nearby and not need them than to need them and be alone. The minutes ticked by slowly. The two ships faced each other in the emptiness of space, each studying the other, each preparing for whatever might come next. What neither Captain June nor Commander Vex knew was that this meeting would change both their species forever. The humans' strange and frightening biology, their willingness to face pain and death, their divided minds and strong emotions, all these things that made the Varine afraid would soon become the foundation of something unexpected. Respect. But first there would be fear. Deep primal fear, and it was just beginning. 3 hours had passed since the alien ship appeared. On the bridge of the UES Dauntless, Captain June Kim sat in his chair, waiting. His crew worked quietly at their stations. The tension in the air was thick. Any response to our greeting message? June asked. Communications Officer Hyun shook his head. No, sir. They're still scanning us, but they won't talk to us. June frowned. This was not normal. In all other first contact situations, aliens had been eager to communicate. These aliens seemed more interested in studying them, like scientists looking at bugs under a microscope. What do you think they want? Asked Subin Han, looking up from her tactical station. I don't know, said June, but I don't like being watched, like this. Inside the alien vessel, the Varine were becoming more and more disturbed by what they saw. Science Director Ziv had called an emergency meeting with the ship's leaders. The room was filled with high-ranking Varine, their scales showing a mix of colors that reflected their confused emotions. Show them, Ziv said to his assistant. A large screen lit up, showing images from inside the human ship. The Varine watched, in silence as humans went about their daily lives. This is their eating ritual, said Ziv. The screen showed the ship's cafeteria. Humans sat together, putting food into their mouths, chewing and swallowing. They take dead plants and animals, heat them until they change form, then put them inside their bodies where they are broken down by acids, explained Ziv. They call this cooking and digestion. Several Varine turned away, their scales turning green with disgust. And this, continued Ziv, changing the image, is how they clean themselves. Now the screen showed shower rooms where humans stood under falling water. They need to wash away their own body oils and dead skin cells every day, said Ziv. If they don't, they develop unpleasant smells and can get sick. Military Commander Lox, whose scales were a deep red, spoke up. These are disgusting facts, but they don't make humans dangerous. Why should we fear them? Ziv nodded. You're right. It's not their biology alone that concerns me. It's what they do voluntarily. The screen changed again. Now it showed the ship's gym. Humans were lifting heavy weights, running on treadmills, and fighting each other in a ring. They deliberately stress their muscles until they tear on a small level, said Ziv. Then their bodies rebuild the muscles stronger than before. They call this working out. They hurt themselves to get stronger? Asked Commander Lox, his red scales getting even darker. Yes, said Ziv. And look at this. The screen showed the ship's medical bay. A human was getting a vaccine shot. They inject themselves with weakened versions of diseases so their bodies can learn to fight them, explained Ziv. They deliberately expose themselves to danger to build resistance. Fleet Commander Vex, who had been quiet until now, floated forward. Show them the recreation area again. The screen changed to show humans in their free time. Some were playing virtual reality games where they pretended to be in dangerous situations. Others were watching movies about war and conflict. Their entertainment is about struggle, said Vex. Even when they rest, they think about fighting. But the most concerning thing, said Ziv, is their history. Now the screen showed images from the ship's database. Scenes of human history flashed by. Wars, revolutions, explorations into dangerous territories. Humans have spent most of their existence fighting, said Ziv. First against nature, then against each other. Now they fight against the challenges of space. He changed the image one more time. Now they saw the ship's weapons training room. Humans were practicing with laser pistols, learning hand-to-hand combat and running through emergency drills. Every human on that ship is trained to fight, said Ziv. Even their scientists and doctors know how to use weapons. They call it standard training. The room was silent as the Varine took in this information. In their society, only soldiers learned to fight. The idea that everyone would know how to use weapons was shocking. There's one more thing, said Ziv quietly. Something in their psychology that I don't understand. He touched his control panel, and the screen showed the human captain's personal quarters. Captain June was looking at pictures of his family back on Earth. They form deep emotional attachments, explained Ziv, to their families, their friends, their home planet, and even to concepts like freedom and honor. Why is that dangerous? Asked a young Varine scientist. Because, said Fleet Commander Vex, it means they will fight harder to protect these things than they will to protect themselves. Back on the Dauntless, Captain June was growing tired of waiting. Enough of this, he said, standing up from his chair. Hyun, send another message. Tell them if they don't respond, we will consider their actions hostile. Yes, sir, said Hyun, typing the message quickly. Subin looked worried. Captain, their ship is much bigger than ours. If they attack, size isn't everything, said June with a small smile. And we're not alone. He nodded to Hyun, who pressed a button on his console. The main screen changed to show a different view of space. At first it looked empty. Then one by one small lights appeared. 6 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, forming a circle around the alien vessel. Earth Command. Got our message, said June. They sent the 5th Fleet. Inside the Varine ship, alarms were going off. 6 more human ships have appeared, shouted a sensor operator, his scales flashing yellow with fear. Fleet Commander Vex rushed to the bridge. How did they get here so fast? Where did they come from? They were hiding their energy signatures, said Ziv, who had followed Vex to the bridge. It seems humans are also good at deception. The Varine leaders watched as the human ships moved into attack formation. Should we fire first? Asked Commander Lox. We still have superior weapons. Vex stared at the screen, at the 7 human ships that now surrounded them. They were smaller, less advanced. By all logic, the Varine should win any battle. But the scan results flashed in his mind. Humans who injured themselves to grow stronger. Humans who trained for combat every day. Humans who would rather die fighting than surrender. For the first time in his long career, Fleet Commander Vex felt afraid. "No," he said finally. "We will not fire first. We will talk to them." "Talk?" repeated Lox, surprised. "Since when do we talk to lesser species?" Vex turned to him, his scales now a calm, determined blue. "Since we met one that could actually hurt us," he said. The bridge of the UES Dauntless was silent as everyone waited. The 7 human ships held their positions around the much larger alien vessel. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. It was like the moment before a storm. "Captain," said Hyun, breaking the silence. "They're sending a message." Captain June straightened in his chair. "Put it on the main screen." The screen flickered, and then an alien appeared. It was nothing like the aliens humans had met before. This creature had 6 eyes arranged in a circle on its face. Its skin was covered in shiny scales that seemed to shift colors, currently a deep purple. It floated rather than stood, hovering above what looked like a control panel. "I am Fleet Commander Vex of the Varine Concordance," said the alien. Its mouth didn't move. The words seemed to come from a translator device. "Who speaks for your vessels?" June stood up. "I am Captain June Kim of the United Earth ship Dauntless. I speak for the human vessels in this sector." The alien's scales rippled, changing to a lighter shade of purple. "You have surrounded our ship with your fleet. Is this how humans greet new species?" June's face remained calm, but his eyes were hard. "We sent you 3 greeting messages. You ignored them all. Instead, you scanned our ship without permission. In human culture, this is considered rude and potentially threatening." The alien was silent for a moment, then it said, "We meant no offense. Scanning is how we learn about new species." "And what have you learned about us?" asked June. The question seemed to surprise the alien. Its scales flashed a quick yellow before returning to purple. "We have learned that humans are interesting," said Vex carefully. "Your biology and customs are very different from ours." June smiled slightly. "Different doesn't mean wrong, Commander Vex. Diversity is the strength of the galaxy." Inside the Varine ship, Fleet Commander Vex turned away from the communication screen to speak privately with Science Director Ziv. "These humans are bold," he said. "They speak to us as equals despite their inferior technology." Ziv's scales were a thoughtful blue-green. "Perhaps they don't see themselves as inferior. Our scans show they have fought many wars among themselves. They are used to facing enemies with both stronger and weaker weapons." Vex considered this. The Varine had always relied on superior technology to conquer other species. The idea of fighting when you were at a disadvantage was foreign to them. "We should test them," he said finally. "See how they respond to a show of force." Ziv looked alarmed, his scales flashing yellow. "Is that wise? They have us surrounded." "Their ships are smaller than ours," said Vex. "Their weapons are less advanced. We need to establish dominance now, or they will think we are weak." He turned back to the communication screen where Captain June was waiting patiently. "Captain Kim," said Vex, "to show that we come in peace, we will demonstrate our technology. Please observe." Without waiting for a response, Vex nodded to his weapons officer. A beam of bright green energy shot out from the Varine ship. It flew past the human vessels and hit a small uninhabited moon in the distance. There was a flash of light, and when it faded, a large chunk of the moon was simply gone. "This is but a fraction of our power," said Vex. "We share this knowledge freely with you, so you understand the nature of our meeting." On the Dauntless, the crew watched the display with tense faces. The alien weapon had destroyed part of a moon with one shot. It was more powerful than anything humans had, but Captain June didn't look afraid. He looked thoughtful. "Thank you for the demonstration." "Commander Vex," he said calmly, "would you like to see one of ours?" Without waiting for an answer, June nodded to Subin. "Lieutenant Han, please show our new friends the Archer system." "Yes, Captain," said Subin, pressing buttons on her console. From the smallest human ship, a tiny object shot out. It was so small that at first it seemed like nothing. Then suddenly it split into 20 smaller objects. Each one began to glow with a blue light. The small objects surrounded the Varine ship, moving so fast they were hard to track. They didn't fire or attack. They just circled the alien vessel like tiny stars. Inside the Varine ship, alarms were going off. "What are those devices?" demanded Vex. "Why can't our sensors lock onto them?" Ziv was studying his screen, his scales now a pale blue of confusion. "They appear to be some kind of smart missiles. They're changing their energy signature every 3 seconds. Our targeting systems can't keep up." "Can they hurt us?" asked Vex. Ziv looked up, his scales now a worried yellow. "Each one carries enough explosive power to damage our engine sections. 20 of them could disable our ship." On the Dauntless, Captain June watched the Varine ship with steady eyes. "The Archer system is our newest defense technology," he explained, to Vex through the still-open communication channel. "Those small devices are controlled by artificial intelligence. They can detect weak points in any ship's hull and target them precisely." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We don't want to use them, Commander. We prefer talking to fighting." Inside the Varine ship, Vex was angry. His scales were now a deep red. These humans had turned his show of force against him. They had responded to his display of power with a subtle but clear threat of their own. "Should we shoot them down?" asked Commander Lox. "No," said Ziv quickly. "If we miss even one, it could strike us, and the other human ships might take that as a sign to attack." Vex knew Ziv was right. The humans had placed them in a difficult position with a simple but effective tactic. They couldn't attack without risking damage, but they couldn't retreat without looking weak. It was a strategy the Varine had never encountered before. The species they had conquered in the past had either shown fear and surrendered, or attacked directly and failed. These humans were doing neither. "Captain Kim," said Vex, turning back to the communication screen. "Your demonstration is impressive. Perhaps we should continue our discussion without further weapons displays." On the Dauntless, June nodded. "I agree, Commander. May I suggest a direct meeting? You could send representatives to our ship, or I could bring a small team to yours." The suggestion shocked the Varine. They never allowed other species onto their ships, and they never visited alien vessels without a full security team. "You would come to our ship?" asked Vex, his scales showing ripples of surprise. "Knowing what our weapons can do?" June smiled. It was a genuine smile, not forced or fake. "Yes. That's how trust begins, Commander. Someone has to take the first step." Vex was silent, thinking. The scans had shown that humans were unpredictable, emotional, and sometimes violent. But now he was seeing something else. They could also be brave, reasonable, and willing to take risks for peace. The Varine had conquered 12 species because those species were predictable. They either fought and lost, or surrendered out of fear. These humans did neither. They stood their ground, showed their strength, but offered peace. For the first time, the Varine had met a species they didn't understand, and that was the most frightening thing of all. 2 hours later, a small shuttle left the UES Dauntless. Inside were Captain June Kim, Lieutenant Subin Han, and Dr. Min Sung, the ship's head scientist. The shuttle moved slowly toward the massive Varine vessel. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" asked Subin. Her hand rested near her weapon. "We're putting ourselves at their mercy," June nodded. "Sometimes you have to take a risk to make peace." "But our scans show their ship could destroy our entire fleet," said Min. "Why are they so interested in talking now? Why not just attack?" "That's what I want to find out," said June. The shuttle docked with the alien ship. The 3 humans stood at the airlock waiting. When the door opened, they got their first real look at the Varine. 3 aliens waited for them. They were tall and thin with 6 eyes and scales that shifted colors. They floated above the ground on small platforms. The one in the center had deep purple scales. "I am Fleet Commander Vex," it said. "Welcome aboard our vessel." June stepped forward. "Thank you for having us, Commander. I am Captain June Kim. This is Lieutenant Subin Han and Dr. Min Sung. The Vareen led the humans through their ship. It was very different from human ships. The corridors were wider and taller. The lights were dim and purple. Everything was smooth and curved, with no sharp edges. They entered a large room that seemed to be a meeting area. A table floated in the center, with seats around it. The seats, for the Vareen, were just platforms, but there were 3 normal chairs for the humans. "You were prepared for us," noted June, looking at the chairs. "We try to be thorough," said Vex. Everyone sat down. For a moment, no one spoke. Then June broke the silence. "I'm curious, Commander. You scanned our ship. What did you see that made you decide to talk instead of fight?" The question seemed to surprise Vex. His scales flickered between purple and blue. "You speak very directly, Captain," he said. "Humans usually do," replied June. "We find it saves time." Vex looked at the other Vareen, then back at June. "Very well. We saw many things that concerned us. Your biology is very different from ours. You seem to thrive in conditions that would kill most species." Dr. Min leaned forward, interested. "Like what?" The second Vareen, whose scales were a scientific blue, answered. "You breathe oxygen, a highly reactive gas. You consume solid matter for energy. Your body temperature is much higher than ours. You need to lose consciousness for hours each day to survive." "You mean sleep?" asked Min with a small laugh. "Yes, we need that. But most concerning," continued the blue-scaled Vareen, "is your behavior. You deliberately cause yourselves pain to become stronger. You simulate dangerous situations for entertainment. Your history is filled with conflict and violence." "That's true," said June. "But it's not the whole story." "What do you mean?" asked Vex. "You saw our capacity for violence, June. But did you look for our capacity for peace, for cooperation, for sacrifice?" The Vareen looked confused. Their scales rippled with uncertainty. "Let me explain," said June. "Yes, humans have fought many wars, but we've also built peace after those wars. We've learned from our mistakes." He turned to Subin. "Lieutenant Han's great-grandfather fought against my great-grandfather in a war between our countries. Now our nations are strong allies and we serve together." The Vareen seemed shocked by this. "You fight against your own kind, and then become allies?" asked Vex. "Yes," said June. "Conflict taught us the value of peace. We don't want war, Commander. We've seen too much of it already." "Yet you are clearly prepared for it," said the third Vareen, whose red scales marked him as a military leader. "Of course," said Subin. "The universe is unknown and sometimes dangerous. Being prepared isn't the same as being aggressive." June nodded. "Exactly. The Archer system I showed you? It's designed to disable ships, not destroy them. We want to protect ourselves, not conquer others." Vex was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "In our history, the Vareen have encountered 12 other species. All of them now serve in our concordance." The humans understood what he meant. The Vareen had conquered these species. "And how has that worked for you, Commander?" asked June gently. "Are these conquered species happy? Do they help you grow and learn? Do they make you better?" Vex's scales flashed a surprised yellow. No one had ever asked such questions before. "They serve their purpose," he said finally. "But imagine what they could do if they were allies instead of subjects," said June. "Imagine the different ideas, the new perspectives they could bring." Min spoke up. "Humans believe diversity makes us stronger. Different views, different ways of thinking. They help us solve problems better." The blue-scaled Vareen scientist looked interested. "This is why you have no central authority on your ships? Our scans showed you often discuss and debate before making decisions." "Yes," said June. "I'm the captain, but I listen to my crew. They see things I might miss." "This is inefficient," said the red-scaled military leader. "Sometimes," admitted June, "but it leads to better decisions in the long run." Vex studied the humans carefully. "Your approach is strange to us. The Vareen believe in clear hierarchy and unified purpose. And that works for you," said June. "But it's not the only way." He leaned forward. Commander, the galaxy is big enough for both our species to exist without conflict. We don't want your territory or your technology. We just want to explore, to learn, to grow. And if we threaten you? Asked Vex, his scales darkening. If we decide humans are too dangerous to allow freedom? The room became very tense. Sabin's hand moved closer to her weapon, but June remained calm. Then you would learn firsthand why your scans frightened you. His voice wasn't threatening. He was simply stating a fact. Humans don't want war, Commander, but we will fight if we must. Every person on my ship, from the youngest cadet to the oldest officer, would die to protect Earth and our colonies. Why? Asked Vex, genuinely confused. Why sacrifice yourself for others? Because that's what being human means, said Yon. We protect what we love, our families, our friends, our home. Vex was silent for a long time. The other Varine watched him, waiting for his decision. Finally, his scales settled into a calm blue. You are not what we expected, Captain Kim. Is that good or bad? Asked June with a small smile. I'm not sure yet, admitted Vex. But I believe we have much to learn from each other. He rose from his platform. I will speak with the High Council. For now, there will be peace between them, Farine and humans. We will establish proper diplomatic channels. June stood as well. Thank you, Commander. That's all we ask for. A chance to know each other before we judge each other. As the humans prepared to return to their shuttle, Vex approached June privately. Captain, may I ask you one more question? Of course. Our scans showed that your ship has a self-destruct system. If we had attacked, you would have activated it, wouldn't you? June looked the alien in his 6 eyes. Yes, Commander. If you had tried to take our ship, I would have destroyed it, and damaged your vessel in the process. Even though you would die? Even then, Vex's scales rippled with a mix of colors. Respect, fear, and something like awe. I think I finally understand what frightened us about humans, he said. It's not your biology or your technology or even your capacity for violence. What is it then? Asked June. It's your choices, said Vex. You know you might lose, but you fight anyway. You know you might die, but you still take risks. You choose courage over safety, freedom over submission. He paused, his scales settling into a deep blue. The Varine never choose death, Captain. We always choose survival, at any cost. And humans? Asked June. Humans choose what you believe is right, even when it's hard, said Vex. That is what makes you dangerous. And perhaps that is what makes you worthy of respect. As the human shuttle departed the Varine vessel, June looked back at the alien ship through the window. He didn't know what would happen next. There might be peace between humans and the Varine. There might be war. But one thing was certain. The Varine would never underestimate humans again. The aliens had scanned a human warship, and what they saw had filled them with fear. But maybe, just maybe, they had also found something to admire. The end.